Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for the Preparing for CARM Release 2 webinar. This has been our most requested webinar, so we would like to thank you for being here today and thank you for just trusting UPS to deliver this important update. So with that, let's get started. Before I introduce our speakers today, I have a few quick administrative updates. First of all, this meeting is being recorded and will be made available to everybody who registered after the event. We encourage participation and would like to ensure we have your questions answered after the webinar. So please make use of the Q&A function at any point during this call, and we'll try our best to answer your questions live on the call through the Q&A function, or if necessary, we'll contact you privately after the call to get your questions answered. We have an excellent lineup of speakers today. It's my pleasure to introduce Paul Gehrig, Vice President of Brokerage for UPS Supply Chain Solutions Canada. We're also joined by Penny Moulton, Director of Customs Brokerage Compliance at UPS Supply Chain Solutions Canada. Peter Shaw, the Director of Customs Brokerage Compliance at UPS Supply Chain Solutions Canada, and Tammy Bilodeau, Vice President of UPS Canada Customs Brokerage. For legal purposes, I'm going to read the following message verbatim, and then we'll get ready to start our great content today. This presentation is for informational purposes only. It does not constitute legal advice. Please consult with your own legal counsel for such advice. Do not rely on this information without performing your own research. With that done, it's my great pleasure to pass it over to Paul Gehrig, who will open it up for all of you. Thank you.
Good morning. I have the pleasure of welcoming you to today's webinar. CARM, or CBSA Assessment and Revenue Management, is a multi-year initiative that will transform the collection of duties and taxes for goods imported into Canada. While CARM 2.0 has been postponed to January 2023, it is important that you prepare now. Registering and familiarizing your company with CARM functionality will ease the transition when CBSA officially implements their initiatives. I'll now turn you over to Penny Moulton, Director of UPS SCS Brokerage Compliance, to introduce our agenda and begin the webinar.
Great, thank you, Paul. So today we're going to do an overview of CARM. We'll talk about the CARM timelines, the impact of CARM on commercial importers. We'll talk about logging in using either a sign-in partner or GC key, about delegation of authority, how to delegate authority, and payment in the CARM Client Portal, the different options that are available, the different security that you can put in place. And we'll then close it up with some key takeaways and some questions. So as Anna said, please ask any questions in the Q&A function, and hopefully we'll get to your questions throughout the webinar. If we don't get to them during this webinar, we will answer them after when we send the recording and the answers to the questions after the webinar. So what is CARM? CARM stands for CBSA Assessment and Revenue Management, and it's really a Canadian government initiative. It's for all commercial importers importing into Canada, and CARM allows you to register and view your accounts through what's called the CARM Client Portal, so the CCP. It's important that you register now, and I will get into that in further detail. So CARM will introduce an electronic option, which will allow you to pay directly to CBSA for your duties and taxes. And it's a client-based accounting through the business numbers, which will improve the information flow between CBSA and importers of record, and third parties as well. So today, you know, a lot of things are done paper, where under CARM, everything will be done electronically. And the CARM project will transform how the agency assesses, collects, manages, and reports on import revenue and trade information. So CARM is, release 1 is in effect now. And I do urge you to register in the CARM Client Portal now and delegate access to your service provider. Once you register, you'll be able to see your accounting details, your transactions, and anything related from a revenue standpoint. So it allows you to get used to the portal, see what's available in the portal, and see all of the details. Release 2 is not scheduled to launch before January 2023, but certainly don't hold off to register. And like I said, you'll be able to delegate access and get used to the portal prior to the launch of January 2023. What I did want to point out here is that CBSA were able to, or what they did do is they removed access to anybody that would have access to the portal who hadn't used the access for 180 days or more. And when that happened, some of you may have lost your access to the portal. Customs have since put that back in place, but if they'd already deactivated you, you may not have access any longer. So I want to point that out. If you had registered a while ago and you haven't had access or you haven't gone into the portal, to please try to get in. And if you are deactivated, you will not need to contact CBSA to get that reactivated. So all commercial importers coming into Canada, who is the importer of record, needs to register for CARM. And that includes resident and non-resident importer. If you are responsible for the duties and taxes on the goods when they come into Canada, you will need to make sure that you register for CARM, and you'll be responsible as well for posting security. So now I'm going to turn it over to Peter.
Thank you, Penny, and good morning, everyone, and good afternoon to those of you who are joining us from the East Coast of Canada. So this portion of the webinar, we will be covering some key steps associated with registering in the CARM Client Portal. So to access the CARM Client Portal, you will first need to access the CBSA website. So that will be an important URL to bookmark, because once you are registered, you will be going in and out of this website all during the transition to CARM. In the upper right-hand corner, you will see the option to toggle between French and English, so it is in both official languages. To log into the portal, you will need to click on the link, which is located below Services and Information section, and once accessed, you will be directed to the next step. So all businesses and individuals will need to go through this initial setup prior to using the CARM Client Portal's main functionalities. And you can sign in either using a sign-in partner's web portal or by using a GC key functionality. It makes no difference. One is not better than the other. It depends on the individual or the company, which way they want to do the sign-in. If you're using a sign-in partner, you will be directed to their sign-in page, and you will use credentials that you currently have. One thing to keep in mind is that from a CARM perspective, CARM will not have access to the financial information. It is only used to do that actual sign-in. So if you're using a GC key, you can use an existing GC key, which you may have for other portal functionalities within CBSA. So if you already have a GC key, you won't need to apply for a new one. One thing to keep in mind, if you have a GC key for the CRA site, it is not usable with the CARM Client Portal. If you do not have a GC key, once you click on the GC key option, it will take you through the step-by-step instructions so that you will be able to have that the key in order to log into the portal. Now, one thing that is relatively new with respect to the portal is the need for multi-factor authentication sorry about that, multi-factor authentication. Once you are set up either through GC Key or a sign-in partner, you will need to register for this using preferably your work email address, which will complete the registration. Once you complete it, you'll go to the next step. There will be a 6-digit code which will be sent to your email, which you will enter on the screen provided, which will allow you entrance into the CARM Client Portal. Now, one thing you're probably wondering, okay, is this going to take a long time to get that 6-digit code? My experience with this, it's within seconds that you'll receive it and you're able to go back in to the portal. It will time out, so you will have to, every time that it times out, you will have to request the code and then be able to go back in. So we're now going to talk a little bit about registering a business in the CARM Client Portal. So we'll talk a little bit about the business account manager, which is probably the most important role with this registration. So some of the specifications for this role possesses the highest level of management access over a business account with complete read, write, and edit privileges. Businesses should determine who their BAM is prior to business account setup. So it'll be important to have that information before you actually go in to do the actual setup. The first person to register in the CARM Client Portal will be the BAM, and the BAM assigns another person from the business to be a second business account manager. So it's highly recommended that you have at least 2 business account managers, because in the event that one was to leave the company, you have a backup so that you don't have to go through the process of reestablishing your being able to get into the CARM Client Portal. And BAMs will need to have the required legal information to link their business account in the portal. So it'll be very important that the person that's selected to take on this role is able to have all the information needed, because once they set up, they are considered the key go-to person. So when it comes time to register the business, CBSA has developed an interactive worksheet, which allows you to compile all the information you're going to need in order to do your registration. So we will be sending that out as an add-on to the presentation material. I can't stress enough, make sure that you go through, fill out all those fields. It will make your registration go that much faster, because if you don't go through that, you'll be trying to find information which needs to be inputted in order to complete the registration. So now we look at looking at this form. Register my business is in the bottom right-hand side. Now, if you, on the left-hand side, you'll see the request access to my employer, and that's where employees will be given the option to register for the CARM Client Portal. So they'll have reason to go into the portal and do various activities. Before the employee is able to go into the CARM Client Portal, they will need to create a user account using a GC key or a sign-in partner, as we've talked about before. Once they have created that and they have that association, they will then enter the BN9 for the company that they're requesting access to, hit search. If everything is entered correctly, there'll be a match. And there's one last question. They will have to indicate why they need access to the portal. Once they've keyed in the access, indicating why they need to be in the portal, then they'll hit submit, and then it'll go over to the business account manager for approval. And once that's been approved, then they will have access dependent upon the level of access that they need. So going back to registering the business, you will enter your BN9 as well as your importer program reference number, and then check off that you are authorized to act on behalf of the business. Once that is clicked off, then you will be taken to the next screen. And this is where the worksheet that I talked about previously will come in very handy, because this information will be important to have. And I can't stress enough that the information has to be pristine. It has to be absolutely correct. If there's not a period in your company name, you can't put a period here. If there's a hyphen, the hyphen has to be there, and the spacing. It has to be exactly as the company is registered for CBSA. So very important to make sure all that information is is outlined. You have it as it is with CBSA, make this whole registration process go that much quicker. Once you've completed all that, you'll hit on next, and it will take you to 3 affinity questions, which will be 2 out of the 3 will be required to be answered. So the first question, a transaction number from your 5 most recent transactions will be displayed. Please enter the total of duties and taxes that we're owing for the given transaction number. And they give you the transaction number. You put in the total duties and taxes. If you don't have that information readily available, you can reach out to your customs broker and they would be able to provide that information to you as well. The second question, you will need the exact value of your most recent payment associated to the RM you're registering with. This can be found in your daily notice or statement account. One thing to take into account, depending upon when the posting is happening, it could be for that current day or the previous day. If you have any problems, and like I said, you can go back to your customs broker for assistance, but you can also reach out to the CARM Client Support Help Desk and they will be able to help answer questions as well. And the last question, what is the balance of your last statement of account? You will need your most recent statement of account with a balance related to the RM, not $0. So if your most recent statement has a 0 balance, then you will have to go to the previous statement of account, which has either a positive or a negative balance, and input it there. And following that, then if all the answers match up, then out of the 2 questions that you picked, then you would be registered for the CARM Client Portal. And I will now turn it back over to Penny.
Great, thanks, Peter. And we're going to talk more about the CARM Client Portal. So this is a screen print of all of the information that you can find on the portal. So from the portal, you can complete the delegation of authority. Once you register, you'll see the delegation or the information there from your customs broker. So you would click on that to accept and delegate authority to them. You'll be able to see the recent transactions. You see that under number 2. So that would include, any B3s, any other details that you may have that will be under the recent transactions. If we've submitted any rulings on your behalf and they're ongoing, you will see the number of rulings there. And I will say we have submitted some rulings electronically for a few of our customers, and they've come back through the portal. It's very slick and very fast, and you're able to see the status of any rulings that you've submitted. And also you're able to see if there's any pending employee requests. So if you're the BAM, the Business Account Manager, you'll be able to see if some employees have requested access, and then you determine whether or not the employees do need to have access to the portal. As you can see at the top right, if you have different RM account numbers, for example, you can click on the drop down and see the RM specific details and information. You can also click on the financial information and get that detail. And I do have more information on that further in the webinar today. And that gives you kind of an overview of what you're able to see and where you're able to find some of the details in the portal. So from a financial information standpoint, once you're registered, and another good reason to register now, because you can actually see your statements of account. So you can go in and see the statement of account, for example, for March, just came out March 25th. You're able to see all of that detail. In the statement of account, you may see files that show as late, or you may see files that are showing as credits. And it could be that the files were not applied properly by CBSA, which is why they're showing late. And if that's the case, we might need to, work together to get your account clean. So when we go into release 2, there isn't any of those anomalies outstanding on the account. And there could be, like I said, there could be some credits that you can take into account when we make the next payment to CBSA. And from a CBSA invoice standpoint, if you received an AMPS penalty or a K-23 or any kind of invoice which would be outside of the regular B3s, they're known as today, they'll be known as CADs, which are commercial accounting documents. Once CARM is live, but anything outside of that you would find under the CBSA invoices, and those as well would need to make sure that those are paid timely at the end of the month when you pay the rest of your transactions. So once you're registered, it's important that you set up your personal profile. And to do that, you would go into accounts and profiles, and then you would click on personal profile. And on that, you would complete the personal profile fields such as name, telephone number, email, etc. And then once you do that, you would go into subscribe to the notifications. And you would, the thing is, you either subscribe to the notifications or you don't subscribe to the notifications. At this point, there's not an option to click on only receiving certain notifications. So like I said, you either receive all of the notifications or no notifications. So if you're not sure what you would like to receive, you may want to click on subscribe for now. See if there's a lot of notifications that you receive, and then go from there and maybe unsubscribe. CBSA are saying that they will be looking at receiving only certain notifications, but at this point, it's either subscribing or unsubscribing. So just to talk a little bit more on what Peter said about the user roles. So the business account manager is the one that registers in the CARM Client Portal and then assigns somebody else from the company to be the business account manager. You would assign UPS as the third-party business account manager, and that allows us to continue to do what we do today. As far as releasing and accounting for your shipments, being able to help with the reconciliation at the end of the month, and things like that. And then as the business account manager or as a user, you would either have program account management status to a specific account. It depends on how you want to set up your customers or your importers or your internal employees. It depends how you want to do that. There's other user roles, but again, you can determine how you want people to have different user roles. If you want somebody just to be a reader, you can assign them to be a reader just to be able to see the information and not be able to make any changes or updates to that. So now I'm going to turn it back over to Peter.
Thanks, Penny. We're going to talk a little bit about a delegation of authority in the CARM Client Portal. And this is extremely important because obviously through that delegation process, as a broker, we can continue to do what we've done for the client for the time that we have been associated with, as well as from a delegation perspective, we can also utilize that from an employee perspective. So if you look at the bottom right-hand side, you'll see manage pending employee requests and manage pending third-party requests. The employee requests, we went through the steps in regards to myself as an employee going in, requesting access. So this will be key to monitor that and provide the access that they need. As Penny has indicated, there's various levels and accessibility. So we want to make sure that employees are not given more access than they need, but make sure that they're given the access that they need in order to do their job. So it'll be important to monitor that because you'll have employees that come and go. So there'll be updates made to existing employees and additions. So that will be extremely important. When you look at managing the pending third-party requests, and that's where it comes into play with respect to the broker and making sure that we have the access that we need in order to continue to do what we are doing today. So you will click on Manage Pending Third-Party Requests. From there, you will go to the next screen will bring up, will ensure that you're able to click all programs that are selected, because you want to make sure you have full access. Then there will be a secondary box which will have 3 check boxes available. So you want to be able to see everything that's been submitted by the broker, submitted by the customer, and submitted by other businesses. This is one of the key parts that we want to make sure that everyone is getting registered, but as well going in and making sure the delegation is set up. Because without that delegation, then service will not be as it is today. And we definitely want to make sure that everyone is set up so that when we roll into release 2, that this portion is all set up. So not a reason to delay because there's been a delay in release 2. It's a great time to go in, get the delegation set up, get familiar with the portal and what it now offers so that when the next release happens, you have the information that you need in order to move forward. And I'm going to now turn it back over to Penny, and she's going to talk a little bit about payments under CARM.
Thanks, Peter. All right, so release prior to payment. So today, when goods come into Canada, generally they're released and the customs broker is paying on your behalf, or you're paying directly to CBSA after the goods are released. So with CARM, in order to be able to continue to have release prior to payment, or RPP, you'll need to have security, which is required for release 2. So security can be either a continual surety bond, which is equal to or greater than 50% of the importer's highest monthly accounts payable to the CBSA within the most recent 12-month period. And then the bond is subject to a $25,000 minimum or a $10 million maximum. So essentially what you'll do is take 12 months of data, take your highest month of duty and taxes, it does include GST, and you would divide that by 2, and that would be the amount you would need to get the bond for. There are certainly certain circumstances where maybe last year you brought in a huge machine and the duty and tax outlay was extremely high, and you know that you are not going to be experiencing that again. So then you would look at another month and you can take that into account. At the end of the day, you have to make sure you have enough in your bond to cover the duties and taxes owing to be able to keep your RPP privileges and put them into place. So it's up to you as the importer to understand the business and what exactly would be required. So that's for the surety bond piece. Now, the other option is a cash bond, which is equal to or greater than 100% of the highest monthly accounts payable. So you do the same exercise, but then you would take 100% of whatever the highest is. And then you would put that on account with CBSA, and you would make a cash deposit, and that would be at CARM Release 2, you would put that into place. There is also the option of a one-time single entry bond for small importers if you've got a one-time coming in. You can also use a credit card on account up to $5,000, and I'll talk more about that in further slides. So the delegation access for importers using third-party service providers, we have to be able to have the delegation access that we've gone through during the presentation today to be able to submit the CADs or the commercial accounting declarations. So today we submit the B3s on your behalf. Under CARM, we have to have the delegation access to be able to submit the commercial accounting documents. The goods can still be released without a delegation access, but they can't be accounted for. So just keep that in mind as you're looking at the delegation access. And in order to get your release prior to payment, you have to have your security in place in order to be able to do that. And the CAD, again, cannot be completed without the delegation of authority. So for payments under CARM, as of release 1, you're able to see all of the transactions. Again, to reiterate, if you haven't already, to register now. You're able to see the financial information. And as of release 2, you'll be able to see the declaration information. The statements of account are on the CARM Client Portal. You're able to see them and again, review them. See if there's any discrepancies in what you might think. And again, maybe there's some credits that you could take into account. And sometimes the information that's there is simply because CBSA have applied something wrong. There could have been a B2 and they applied it to the wrong transaction. So just keep that in mind when you're looking at it, and any corrections we can certainly work with you to make sure those are in place. So there's new payment options that are available in release 1. But most importers are continuing to have the broker pay on their behalf, and then you're getting billed for the duties and taxes along with the brokerage fees. But once you do register, and I did want to point this out, once you do register, you'll see an option where you can make payments directly to CBSA. And please don't make any payments to CBSA unless you talk to your broker first, because what can end up happening is you can have a duplicate payment and then you have to work with CBSA to prove that it was a duplicate payment, because the broker will continue to pay on your behalf until release 2. So just some payments under CARM. Everything, as I said, is going to be moving to electronic. So you can do it online via the CARM Client Portal. You can do credit card or Interac, up to $5,000 for credit card or up to $100,000 for Interac. For online banking, it's unlimited. Just like paying your Visa bill, you look for CBSA assessment and revenue management, or just CBSA, and you could do online banking. You could also do EDI, which is unlimited from the credit or the amount that you would make the payment for. And then we've got pre-authorized debit, which is one time and ongoing. So you could set that up in advance to automatically pay on a monthly basis directly to CBSA. The bank remittance is going to be phased out most probably this year. But right now it is in effect, and it's there until or it is unlimited as far as that goes. So from an online banking standpoint, currently online banking is offered by different financial institutions, as you can see on this screen. I'm not going to review all of them, but I will say that CBSA is in discussions with other financial institutions regarding EDI and online banking, and they're expecting to have more going forward, but that's what is available at this point. So those of you located in the US that are non-resident importers, there's certainly some US banks on there, as well as Canadian banks. So you can to set things up with your banks in advance of release 2. And also you can have your customs broker can make the payments for the duties and taxes on your behalf, but you would still need to get the security set up and have that in order to have your release prior to payment privileges. So I did want to talk a little bit about deferred payments, non-deferred payments, and ad hoc payments. So deferred payments is what we have been talking about as far as release prior to payment privileges. So that again allows your goods to be released at the border and then continue to be delivered into Canada. And that's if you have the release prior to payment privileges available. The payments must be made monthly by the payment due date, or the balance is considered overdue. There's always also interest applied if the payment is overdue. One thing I wanted to point out, the payment is always due 10 weekdays from the 17th of each month. So potentially the payment due date could fall on a statutory holiday. And if that occurs, you'll need to make sure you make the payment before the statutory holiday, or interest will be applicable, and also you'll be late in making your payment. So TCPs, which are trade chain partners, have the option to pay via online banking, credit card, or Interact online through EDI or the pre-authorized debit. So that's in regards to deferred payments. From a non-deferred payment standpoint, this includes all payments made by clients who do not have release prior to payment privileges. So you don't have any security set up. They're not deferred. So what that means is you have to pay the applicable duties and taxes at the time of release or prior. So you can make the payments through the different options, but the shipment will not be able to be released and then the duties and taxes paid after. You would need to pay for them when the shipment arrives or just before it arrives. So ad hoc payment really refers to what I was talking about earlier. When you look at your financial information and it says CBSA invoices, that's where you're going to see these invoices in the portal. And I will say that customs are putting them in the portal now. So again, if you can register, you'll be able to see those in the portal now, where previously they were mailing them out. And I know that some importers are receiving them by mail and on the portal, but other customers haven't received them by mail yet, but they are in the portal. So just something to take note of. But ad hoc payments include miscellaneous invoices such as K-23s, ascertained forfeitures, which are K-9s, AMPS penalties, and things like that. And then for those, what's considered ad hoc payments, you can make those payments directly to CBSA using the same options that we just previously discussed. So I just want to go through the CARM billing cycles and account-based clearing. So customs really have aligned all of the payment due dates, regardless of what type of importer you are. So if you're a regular high value, low value importer through the commercial stream, or you just bring in CLVS volume, or maybe you bring in CLVS and high value and low value shipments, or you're CSA importer, or you bring in continuous commodity goods, regardless, the payment is due at the same time for all importers. And the CADs are always due. That's not changing. So the B3 is due 5 business days after release, and that's the same for the CAD. The CLVS is due the 24th of month 2. And what I wanted to point out here is today for the CLVS shipments coming into Canada, they are due on the 24th of month 2, but they're not maybe always getting completed timely. And today customs don't really have a means to be able to track those properly, and therefore apply the AMPS penalties, where under CARM, they will be applying AMPS penalties for CLVS volume that is late. So I just wanted to point that out. If anybody has any CLVS volume that is late, for whatever reason it is, certainly under CARM Release 2, there will be AMPS penalties. And from a CSA standpoint, the CAD is due until the payment due date. So the SOA is generated the same time. The payment is due, like I said earlier, 10 weekdays after the 17th of month 2, and the correction period. So again, we can do corrections and adjustments electronically through the system. And when we do that, you're actually able to see what the status is. You're able to see if CBSA has requested more information, if CBSA have approved it, that type of thing. So essentially, you could have a shipment come in, there could be duty applicable, and then you've got a CUSMA certificate. We transmitted a correction on your behalf because we got the CUSMA certificate. And then by the time you make the payment at the end of the month and customs have accepted our correction, then there will be no duty owing on that particular file. So from an account-based clearing standpoint, Release 2 simplifies the clearing process, moving to an account-based model. That's what we've been talking about. And the clearing will run nightly on all due debit according to the offsetting preferences. And I did want to point out a little bit about the offsetting preferences, because as an importer of record, you're able to set up different offsetting preferences according to what you would like. So you could do it at the account level, at the intra-program level, or at the intra-program level. So different options available if that's something that you're interested in. So talking a little bit about preparing for CARM Release 2. So just some key takeaways from the webinar today. All commercial importers must have a business number. You need a business number to be able to register in the portal, and make sure that you've got all of the details in order to register. So in other words, the name, as Peter said, the way it's registered with CRA, the address, the way it's registered with CRA, making sure that everything will be able to be linked together with your portal business account. So if you want to have release prior to payment, certainly for the mid-size and the large importers, that's something that you do need to take advantage of. I can't imagine if you didn't have release prior to payment, but you have to have the financial security prior to Release 2. And so as we're talking through this webinar, the different options are surety bond or cash deposit, credit card on account, depending on how you want to set up that release prior to payment financial security. And just to reiterate that to delegate authority to third parties. So just making sure once you're registered, making sure that you delegate authority, and that will allow us to continue to do what we do today. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Tammy.
All right, thank you, Penny. Wow, that was a lot of information. I'm sure that all of you are feeling a little bit overwhelmed with the information right now. I know that there have been lots of questions in the chat as well as the Q&A, and thank you to our responders who've been busy typing responses back to you all. So my job, I think, is probably the easiest. I am just going to try to recap what you've just heard. So as Penny and Peter have said, now is the time to get registered in the CARM Client Portal. So although the project for Release 2 has been delayed to no sooner than January 2023, we don't want to wait till the last minute. There are thousands of importers that need to get enrolled, and the enrollment process does take a little bit of time. So step one, as we've talked about, if you don't have a business number, then you do need that to enroll in the CBSA programs. And some of you asked, is the business number the same as a GST number? It is the same number, but with a different extension that has to be activated for importing. You also need to delegate to third parties, such as your customs broker. Again, there have been questions about, well, what if I have a primary broker? Can UPS still clear on my behalf for the shipments that you carry? Absolutely, we can. You can delegate to one broker, or you can delegate to multiple brokers through the CARM Client Portal. But it's important to ensure that you do delegate to anyone that you want to clear shipments on your behalf. The client portal will allow you to request advance rulings and notifications, view your notifications if you've turned those on, as Penny said, and the notifications are all or nothing, so be mindful of that. It will allow us to submit electronic commercial accounting declarations in the new world. And so that's really one of those benefits from a customs perspective. They're looking forward to moving their systems into the 21st century and being able to view data electronically, and for you to be able to view this data electronically, and of course, view your statement of accounts or SOAs. So how can UPS help? So we can help guide you through the setup. I know we went through it here today. This presentation will be available to you if you need to go through it again. We'll provide you with contacts in terms of emails that you can reach out to, both on the SCS and small pack brokerage side, to help guide you. And the CBSA has excellent YouTube videos and links that can guide you through the process as well. As we've talked about, UPS is able to help you obtain a bond if that is something that you're looking for. So certainly reach out to us if you need help obtaining a bond in preparation for CARM Release 2. You will need it once Release 2 does come out. Not before, but certainly at that point in time. Regardless of who you want to pay CBSA on your behalf, and there have been a number of questions about that, you will need to have your own bond if you are a commercial importer importing into Canada. So just to touch on that again, if you do want your broker, UPS, or other brokers to continue to pay on your behalf, that is possible, but that does not negate the need for a bond. And as I said before, we can continue to act as your broker, either as your unique broker or as one of many other brokers that you may have. It's just important that you ensure that you delegate authority accordingly through the CARM Client Portal. And if you need support in this portal and how to reconcile your statement of account those are things that UPS certainly is interested in talking to you about in terms of how we can help you with that reconciliation. So with that, this is the last slide that we have in our presentation. I'm going to turn it back to Anna, who is going to open it up for questions.
Thank you, Tammy. And thank you everyone for being so active in the Q&A function. We'll keep answering those questions in the Q&A, but we have a little bit of time. So I'll take 3 commonly asked questions live here. And the first question is directed to Penny. We've heard a great overview today about how to register for the CARM portal and why, but what if I don't register for the portal? What happens then?
What a great question, Anna. So if you don't register in the CARM Client Portal, then you don't have your release prior to payment privileges, meaning that when you get to the point of entry, the duties and taxes will have to be paid before the shipment can actually be released into Canada.
Okay, great. Thank you, Penny. Our next question, I'll hand it over to Peter. What happens if I don't want to have a bond or a cash deposit with CBSA?
Another great question, kind of ties back into somewhat of what Penny was just answering. All importers will be required to have financial security if they want to utilize the release prior to payment option. So without it, then you're going to have to go to the site that the goods are crossing and do your payment there in order to obtain release. So there's that would, to me, be a harder way to do it than to have the funds secured so that it will release as it comes into the country.
Got it. Thank you, Peter. I'll stick with you for the last question I have, and it's about the business number. So what if I have a brand new business number and I don't have any transactions showing to answer the affinity questions?
With respect to that particular affinity question, once you enter your business number, CBSA will know that you have not had any transactions. So the affinity questions will not be asked in order for you to register for the portal.
Oh, great. Well, thank you for clarifying that, Peter. And that concludes our webinar today. Tammy, Peter, Paul, Penny, thank you so much for the insightful presentation today. And most of all, thank you for everyone in the audience who joined us today for this important update. Thank you for all the comments that came in and the questions. If we didn't get to your question today, we'll reach out to you privately to make sure you get the answer. And if you have any further questions, please do not hesitate to get in touch with us. You can find our contact information on the slide, and there's also a post-event survey sent out after this webinar closes that you can also get in touch with us through that. So once again, we appreciate your trust in UPS, and we hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you.